Hello, so we thought we'd make a little video about the aids we use to guide our horse. I think maybe the first thing to say about that is that there is a standard system we use, and I think that's just so that if you train a horse, educate him in your way, and then somebody else, you sell that horse to someone else rides the horse, that there's a standard way to do things. It's not that horses understand these aids at all from naturally. In fact, naturally they do the opposite. When you use your legs on a young horse that's never been educated, he'll actually usually ball up and stop. And if you use the reins, put pressure on his head, he'll very often fight that and want to want to run off. So we do have a standard system we use that everybody knows, and I assume that's why, because you could actually educate your horse to go off any signals you want, and if it works for you and no one else was ever going to ride that horse, then of course it doesn't matter. The other thing I think is very important is not so much what you do as the way that you do it. That's what really counts. And that when you ride, you're using your whole body is the aid. As Ray Hunt says, it's the life in your body controlling the life in the horse's body. So that's very important to keep in mind. So for me, I think the first and most important aid is probably your breath. So just letting go a breath is enough to stop your horse. It can energize your horse if you take shorter, quicker, more energetic breaths. You can slow your breath to slow your horse, to take shorter steps, to collect. I think it's the most subtle form of communication perhaps when we ride our horse. Next, I think clear intention is very important. So we need to be really clear what we want before we ask it. And that could be the first aid, is just having that clear intention. Again, we did speak about that in another video. Okay, so the position of our pelvis has a big influence on our horse. And that's our main aid we're going to use to stop, to keep the horse standing still. We're going to have the pelvis tipped back. Our neutral, normal riding position is an upright, correct center balance position. So just going from sitting the tip back position to a center position is enough to ask the horse to walk forward. And then we would have a slightly more forward position with the pelvis when we want extra movement or going for a light upward seat. We can also use weight aids on different sides of our seat. That you have to be very careful that you don't tip your upper body. That's just very subtle to let slightly more pressure on one seat bone or the other that we can use in turning and in lateral work. So legs and hands, the most important thing is the feel and the timing, that we use the aid in the right moment. And that's just a question of practice. Anyone can learn that. It's just a matter of getting used to feeling your horse and practicing it. You can practice on the ground first with long reining maybe, and then it's you can also see what's going on as you use the aids. So the legs, we want to use the leg always to be very loosely hanging out the hip, to be all floppy, and we can use the leg with light little taps. So the first ask would be just a very, very soft tap. If the horse doesn't respond, we need to immediately step that up to be slightly more intense. And if he really didn't listen, a worst case scenario, we might want to take our leg really off the side of the horse and really give him a kick to get him to listen. We should only do that once, really. And if we do that effectively, then he should listen to the slightest aid. The important thing with the hands is that the feel in the hands stays very soft, but needs to be firm. So the classic image is like you're holding baby birds. So they're going to be firm enough that they can't fly away, but not too firm that you're going to squash them. So that the arms, if your center's firm, and your shoulders are back and firm and your elbows hanging down at your sides, then the forearms and wrists can stay very soft. So you can then use very light aids with the reins. You're going to hold the rein between the thumb and on top of your first finger, so that the other fingers can give little tiny vibrations down the rein along a loose rein, which is a nice subtle way to ask the horse to respond. So in general, with guiding your horse, I think the most important thing to always keep in mind is as little as possible, as much as necessary. We did do a daily thought, so if you're interested in more about that, you can check that out. And yeah, I think it's just a thing of keeping learning, keeping trying to improve, keeping trying to get better. How subtle can you be? How little can you do? How much can you feel? How accurate can you get with your timing? So that's what I'm working on. Trying to always be the best I can possibly be for my horse. Yeah, so I hope that's of some use. Thank you for being with us today.